All right. How are you doing, sis?
I'm
Are you
good.
ready for this?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, let's do it. I haven't had time to like
Breathe,
think. Yeah, just
right?
but I think it's in me, like this whole conversation is a part of who we are now. So, I
Mm-hmm.
think I get nervous talking live, to be honest, but hey, we're just gonna talk and I hope that it blesses somebody. So,
Yes. Same.
yeah.
Same. Same. Well, good. How are you doing with all the babies at your house?
Good, good. I have a friend here that's helping, so that has been awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And I just found M&Ms in my sweater pocket. I don't know how long those have been there.
That's like finding a
Peanut
$20
M&Ms.
bill. That's
They might be
awesome.
they're Christmas colors, so I don't know. I don't know if I should. Um, no, I'm good. It's been like this morning. I was just laughing at the chaos because I had to get them all ready to walk them to daycare, and well, the baby's staying, here right now,
Right.
the youngest baby. But I had one strapped to me on the front, one strapped to me on the back, and pushing the little newborn in the stroller, and I was just laughing at myself because it was ridiculous and awesome.
It's
I
so
did it.
awesome.
I did it. So 2 days in a row, I did it. So
Oh my gosh. If you don't know, Abby is a foster mother and she currently has 3 children under the age of 18 months. So
mm,
18 months and then how
12
old?
months,
12 months.
12 months and
Newborn.
12 days. Yeah.
Girlfriend. Girlfriend.
Yeah, it's
That's
fun.
amazing.
It's
You're
fun.
amazing.
Thank you.
Oh,
I I mean, part of my story too, like part of my grief story, this is like a fulfillment and joy piece, of part of my grief story. So it's pretty cool too. I feel
yeah.
like it's given me a lot of, I think I have a lot of like patience and joy in it. And I'm not that overwhelmed because of how long I've waited to do this and be a mom. And so it's really interesting. And I know it's like God's grace too, just because he called us to this and it's hard, but I just feel a lot of peace like as I'm doing it. So it's a gift.
That is a gift. I love that so much. So we'll get started, I guess, like officially. Um, Welcome to Tales of the Warrior. This is Abby, and she is an incredible yoga instructor and a foster mom and just basically an all-around amazing human being, a great photographer. And Abby and I have been friends for a really long time. And so when you asked for me to do a subject of grief, I thought about Abby and the way that she has so beautifully walked through some of the things that she's grieved deeply in her life. And so she's here to talk to us about those things. If you have any questions while we're talking, just put them in the comment section and we will try and scroll back and get to those at the end of our conversation together. And then again, if you ever want to contact or be in touch with Abby or I, you could do it on Instagram. And Abby and I also, I just want to mention real fast, have a retreat coming up in August. And it's going to be in Colorado in the Black Forest. And we did it last year. And it's called the Shalom Retreat. And we work with people, women, to really connect to their bodies and find peace there and connect to nature. And it's really was such a gift last year. I loved it so much. I'm so glad we're doing it again.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So if you want any more information on that, you can also talk to us about those things. All right, Abby, tell the people who you are.
Oh gosh, that's hard. Hey guys, I'm Abby. Hi Sarah. I see my friend Sarah's on, and some others I think have popped on, but I am Abby Mortenson, and I don't know how to tell people about myself. Like, people ask, what do you do? You know, I'm like, a lot. I do a lot of different things. But in general, I'm someone who just wants to find and see beauty, even in hardship, and someone who just wants to honor God with my life, and help others to find healing through whatever they might be going through. And grief in particular is one I'm familiar with. And so, you know, some of my, I like to share a lot about my story, but I also haven't shared a ton about my process and my story yet, because I'm still working through it. And I'm still, I think we'll always be journeying through our losses in this life. But, you know, I heard once someone say, like, speak or teach from the scar and not the wound. And so when we were talking about grief, like, I have a lot of different things going on with my story. And when Amber, when you asked, you know, what do you want to share about? Like, which thing do you want to share about? And I think I'm going to share about a few different things, but the loss of my mom 5 years ago is becoming more of a scar and less of like a gaping wound, which it was a huge wound and open and raw for like 2 years. But I feel like I'm in a place where I can talk about it without, like, I can speak about it. Whereas before I just couldn't, because it was too much. And then with our like infertility journey, I feel like that's still kind of a wound that I haven't yet gone deep with that processing, because I don't know where we're at with it. And maybe I'm like holding off because I have a lot going on. And, you know, with grief, a lot of times we're like, well, we don't want to open that door because we'll never be able to pull ourselves together and like do life. Which I think I still hold that, even though I don't believe that. Like, I know that's not true. And I tell people, like, no, you can go there. Like, I still think I'm holding back a little bit, but I think can be healthy sometimes. So, so yeah, I kind of jumped right into my grief, but,
I love it. Good.
Yeah. I'm married to a wonderful guy, Dan. We've been married for almost 15 years in September. And we right now have 3 babies, all through foster care, a 18-month-old, a 12-month-old, and a 12-day-old. So that's been a joy, and that's also been a journey. There's a lot of grief in that system, and we fostered back when I lived in Colorado. We fostered there, and all of the children returned home or went somewhere else, and then we moved here to New York 3 years ago. And now we have these babies that have been with us, all of them since they were 2 days old. So it's a whole different thing in this season. But yeah, so I'm a mom, and I do a lot of other things. I work for a nonprofit called Free the Girls, which is an amazing nonprofit. You should check them out. We work with trafficking survivors, helping them reintegrate into their communities. And Amber and I shared that. Just that passion and desire to help survivors. That's kind of how we connected, I think. And through Brandy, because Brandy connects everybody.
She's the ultimate connector.
Yeah. So, and yoga, we kind of have we've definitely connected over yoga in the last few years too.
Abby's the whole reason why I'm a yoga instructor. You are.
Oh, I love that. And Jesus, because, you know.
Well, yeah.
He made you that way. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, there's a part of me, little bits about me.
Thank you for sharing. So 5 years ago,
Brittany,
you lost your mom suddenly, and I lost my dad suddenly 7 years ago, and so when I was fielding questions about like what people had to say for this today, I got a lot of like, how do you get over it?
Mm-hmm.
questions. And I personally don't believe that you do get over it. I don't think you believe that really either. So what would you say to the people who want to know how they can just press on and get over it and
Mm.
move forward?
Yeah. I think that, there's so many different losses we'll experience in life, and everybody will experience some loss. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking specifically about losing a loved one and someone we were very connected to. And so loss and death. And I think that our culture, and maybe it's just a human thing, that we don't like to be uncomfortable and we don't like to feel pain because it hurts. And so I think there's this idea that how do I get over this because it really hurts? Like how do I make this go away? How can I get this to be done? I don't want to feel this pain.
Yeah.
And I think that is sort of, I understand why. I mean, I wanted to get out of that feeling too, when I was dealing with her loss, and like right at, the years right after. But I think that, if we look at like the scriptures and look at the life of Christ, he went through pain and grief, and he pressed through it by faith and by trusting God. And I think part of it is becoming comfortable with feeling what we need to feel. And I'm a big believer in not stuffing down our emotions, not stuffing down our pain, because it's not going away. It's not going anywhere. It's there. And I think every person has a different way of dealing with pain, and we all may have tendencies toward different things. Like some people might want to run away and go be distracted, and some people might want to use substances and feel numb or just forget. Some people, whatever it is, we all have these tendencies to find a way to make the pain feel less painful. And I think that's like, it's part of survival too. Like we can't beat ourselves up for that, and we can't, have shame about that, because that's part of our survival. It's sometimes you can't feel it because it's too much. But I think we can't just keep going like that. We can't just pretend that it's not there. And so I would say you don't get over it, but you change your relationship to it. And I've been learning that you don't get over someone's death that you love, but you change your relationship to how it feels and how you integrate that new way of life, how you start living differently because of what you've lost. And so I feel like I'm blabbering on, but am I making sense?
Yes,
I haven't
absolutely.
really slept very much last week. So.
No, absolutely. We tend, I agree, to try to run away from pain, to make pain as minimal as possible. And when you bury it, there's that saying, like, feelings buried alive never die, right? They just fester and they end up coming out sideways. And the sideways could be a million different ways. It could be an addiction and numbing. It could be in self-harm. It could be, in a million other kind of disorders. It can be in sickness, right? Like autoimmune diseases and those kinds of things that come from the just shoving down of emotions in your body. So I totally agree with you.
And I actually experienced that. And I didn't know it was grief until like someone, over time, like people helped me connect the dots, and I realized. But how do I begin this? My story with grief, kind of like the big grief that I've held on to, it began before my mom died, and it began as she was dealing with addiction, and I was really hurting and grieving, losing her, losing the her that I knew and trusted and loved, to this alcoholism. She was an amazing mom growing up. She was so attentive and loving and present. And so I kind of started grieving that relationship before she even died. But I also was in the process of trying to adopt. My husband and I have been trying to adopt since 2012. And shortly before she died, we had connected with a girl who in Colorado who was pregnant with twins, and we were going through the process with her of adopting, and we were super excited and like amazed, and just because my husband's a twin and he'd always wanted that. And they were supposed to be born in December of 2014, and in November she texted me one day and told me that babies died. It just, in the middle of the night, she just texted me and said that, sorry, the babies died. And so we had been in contact, and we had been like, had a relationship with her and really tried to, care for her. So this was a weird thing that happened. And like over the span of a week, everything was uncovered that she had faked everything. She had faked the whole pregnancy. She had faked everybody out. The agency didn't know about it. Or they were fooled by her. And so anyways, that was like, that hit us in November, where we thought we were about to welcome two babies, and there was none. And just the lies and deceit. And then we lost thousands of dollars, which is minimal compared to like how it felt. But all that to say, I hadn't really processed that and very much. And then in January, we found my mom, and she had died in her sleep. And it wasn't like, it was just abrupt. Like she was sick, she was struggling with alcoholism, and she was sick that week, but I didn't know what was wrong, and she wouldn't go to the doctor. And so it was that was the thing that totally crushed me. And, I'm still like, I still have lots of processing to do, because we're always processing grief, right? We're always healing. It's a journey that'll be a lifetime. But instead of really like giving myself time and space to feel this, to grieve this, to work through everything, I just got really, really busy. And that's kind of my go-to is, I like to be involved in a lot of things, and I'm comfortable being busy. And in Colorado Springs, there was plenty of things to be busy with, because there was just a lot going on, and I knew a lot of people. And so I got really busy, running myself to the ground. I think I had like 4 different jobs probably. And we started foster care like a few months after that, or like we started training for foster care, maybe the next, I don't know how long after that. And then we started getting kids in a house. We had 4 kids in a span of 9 months, 4 different children in a span of 9 months, coming and going. And so like all of that compiled, and me just staying busy, and like not taking care of myself, I really started to crash. And it was my body that started to crash. Like I thought I was okay. I mean, I knew I was depressed and sad a lot, and I was struggling to find joy, but I was like, I'm sad because my mom's not here. But my body crashed really hard. And I think God ended up moving us to New York, in a weird, a whole long story. I don't want to take up so much time, but I ended up moving to the woods. God ended up saying, hey, that this is time, you're going here now. And we literally lived in the woods, and the grocery store was 30 minutes away, and people we knew were far away, besides, the people Dan worked with that we loved. But that kind of forced me to stop. And that's when everything came out. Like that's when
Mm.
I really was like, I need to deal with this grief. I need to feel it. I need to process. I need to stop running.
Mm.
And I feel like that's really when my healing started to truly begin. And that was 2 years after
Yeah.
she died.
Yeah. I remember when that happened with the twins, like how mad I was for you. Like,
There were a lot of angry people for us, which felt really
yeah,
nice.
I remember that vividly. Yes, I do. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of grief in a really short period of time, especially and the grief of saying goodbye to the foster kids who came into your home and then left. Like that is its own grief as well, I think. The loss of just anything in your life, anything that you have dreams for, anything that you make plans for, if it doesn't come to fruition, there's a grieving, right? For all of it. And you had a lot to grieve right then. So something that I hear from people like clients I work with is that they're scared to dive into their grief because it feels like the emotion of grief, the sadness of grief is going to take over and they won't be able to get out. Right. And you alluded something like that too when you were talking, like people feel like they will get into grief and they will never ever escape. So that's why they shove it down. That's why they don't engage with it. Do you have anything to say to that? Because you dove in and you've come out on the other side. So what would you say to that?
I think it's a legitimate feeling, and I think it's very common. One thing that I've learned too that kind of fits into this is that there are physical and emotional symptoms with grief that look like so many other things, and it encompasses everything, like your body feels grief, and your emotions and your mind. And so it can look like depression. It can look like different mental disorders, really, because of what's happening in the body and in the soul. And so I understand that feeling. And I think that we need to trust that we are made to process. He doesn't want to leave us in that place. God doesn't want to leave us in that place of dread and fear, because God is love, and his love casts out fear. And so I think that if we can get to a place of just saying, okay, inviting God in, if you're comfortable with God, inviting God into this process, or finding a safe time and space, even if it's an hour, start there, okay, I'm going to take an hour this Saturday and just allow myself to do what I need to do, whether it's crying or hitting your pillow or running or, being outside or doing a yoga or meditation on scripture, or creating that space. And you can set a timer and just say, okay, I'm giving myself an hour today. And you will be able to pull yourself back together, because that's what we do as humans. We're created to do that. We're created to survive, and we can do it. And it's so important, because if we don't, we're never gonna heal.
If we don't feel it, if
we don't process and feel this stuff, I don't think we're not going to be as whole and healed as we want to be, and as God can do for us. Because it's what it does to us when we hold it in. It creates a lot of issues, a lot of physical and emotional pain and suffering. And so I think just having the courage and seeing that other people have done it is
Yeah.
helpful too. And like, I know for me, I literally thought like I would never feel joy again. I felt
Yeah.
that for like a year at least. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just never going to feel joy again. I don't care about life. Like, I've never struggled with like suicidal feelings or like, but I did in that season.
Mm-hmm.
I had never gotten to a point of like making a plan, but I got to many days where I was like, I don't care if I live.
Right.
I don't want to do this anymore. What's the point? And that was a dark time, and it lasted for a year or two.
And it's scary. It's
It's scary.
to be like, I could just not get out of bed and I don't actually care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's terrifying
Mm-hmm.
to find yourself in that place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I love your suggestion of like setting a timer, because I think the reason we find ourselves in that place, I think the reason we find ourselves not caring and not able to feel joy is because what we've done is we've turned off our emotions in an effort to not feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like Brene Brown always says, like, emotions are like a light switch. They're either on or they're off. You can't selectively turn off
Mm-hmm.
emotions you don't want to feel.
Right.
So you end up just not caring about life. You end up not able to get out of bed because you have no emotions. You don't feel
Mm-hmm.
joy. You don't actually feel the pain. You don't feel
Mm-hmm.
any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that you can set a timer for an hour and set a time aside during the day that you are going to commit yourself to really feeling
Mm-hmm.
your feelings
Mm-hmm.
also turns back on your ability to feel joy and turns back on your ability to want to live, to want
Mm-hmm.
to get out of bed, to have gratitude for the world around you, you know?
And I will say too that, you know, I don't think we have to set that timer and say, I'm going to sit and think about this and like really go to the deepest, darkest place. Like, I think you could even set a timer and go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can set a timer and be on your yoga mat and just move your body. And that's actually what I did. I didn't really set timers because I really had a lot of free time, which is not, not everyone has that luxury that I had during that time. But I think that I remember I just was like, I just need to move my body and like put on some music and see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yes.
say, I'm going to think about this. Like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, no, it was very physical practice for me and I would just go on walks in the woods and like the tears would come and a little bit more freedom would come too. And so I think in the prayers, just praying out to God. And I remember I couldn't pray for a long time. Like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't really want to pray. I was kind of mad.
Yeah.
Why'd you do this? Why'd you let this happen?
Yeah.
But I just would pray like, God, be near. And that was my prayer for months. And that's a powerful prayer, and he was. And Rose, hi Rose, she's saying, and being patient, which is so, so true. Just that there's no time limit. There's no timeline for grief. And that's frustrating because we want it to be done.
Right.
And it's not that simple.
Yeah. And you can experience a really great loss and think to yourself, God, I should be more sad about this. Like, what's wrong with me? Because people process emotions so differently, right? It's like the person who laughs at the funeral, right? But like, it's not that they're not grieving. It's not that they're not experiencing that loss. It's that it's just coming through them in a different way. And that's okay too. There's no right way to grieve at all, ever.
Right.
But I do think that it's super necessary to recognize when you have a big loss in your life that there is a necessity to taking care of yourself through that and to making sure that you don't numb out. So what are like you mentioned, taking walks and dancing and those kinds of things, like what are some other kind of self-care tips you have for people who are walking in grief right now?
That's really good. I think it's so important. And it depends too on your personality and who you are. Like, I'm an introvert, and so I needed like a lot of time alone, because that's how I process. I process alone, like in my head. And so being around people wasn't necessarily what I needed at the time, even though I did sometimes need that. I needed to be around people, and when I didn't feel like it, I kind of had to push myself to that direction. Some people might need to push themselves to be alone if they're more, or be around people if that's what helps you. But I was consulting, like talking with a yoga therapist, my Jessica Patterson in Colorado. For those of you who don't know her, she's amazing. But she helped me through some of this process, and some of it was like really practical, like physical practices, like drinking hot lemon water in the morning before I drank my coffee, because I'm a huge coffee drinker, and that stresses out your adrenals and your whole nervous system. And I was already really, my nervous system was stressing out big time from grief, which happens. So I had to, and she's like, add cream to your coffee, because I like my coffee black. And she's like, no, you need nourishment right now. You need fat in your life. She's like, eat macaroni and cheese. Like, don't, like, eat whatever sounds really like comfort food. Like, take care of yourself in that way. And that's what I needed to do, because my personality is to like go the other way. Like, I just don't feel like eating. I'm just going to drink coffee all day. Not because I don't like food. I normally love food, but during the grief, I just didn't have an appetite. Self-massage, just like she recommended, and that's like an Ayurvedic practice, but just getting some really nice oil and just giving yourself a massage every morning. I wasn't good at like every morning, but I would do that sometimes, taking baths.
It feels so incredible, right? Like, I recommend that to people all the time, and they think I'm crazy, but it only takes
it does sound weird at first.
It does,
until you
but
do
it only takes a few minutes, like on the front end of your shower, and it's like the effects last forever. Just the feeling of being so connected to yourself and to your body, and to taking care of yourself, and to rub your arm and be like, this is my arm, and I love it, and I am grateful for it, like, and that doesn't seem like it has much to do with grief, but it has everything to do with grief, because you're taking care of your heart, which is what's broken and what hurts.
Yeah. So I love that one. And yeah, for me, being in nature was huge. It was necessary for me, because that's where I go to feel connected to God the most. And so I like, even through the winter, I was outside every day, at least for a little bit. And I think that's so healing for us, because we're made from the earth. We're made from dust of the earth and breath of the divine, breath of God. So I feel like that connects us and roots us in a way that like we forget, or we aren't thinking about when we're doing our busy lives. So I think being grounded, like really anything that makes you feel grounded. I mean, even like diffusing some really good essential oil, or lighting a candle that makes you feel at home, or just things that make you feel safe. Because a lot of times with grief, and I know losing my mom and you losing your dad, or my friend losing her spouse, like your ground is shaken. Your safety is no longer what you thought was safe. And so just finding that new safety, I think, is really important.
Yes. And you're right that just in case anybody on here right now is really struggling through something, a big loss right now, like Abby said, like at the beginning, turning to God and like, being able to connect to God through this and trust in his like hope. But when you are right in the middle of it, that can feel impossible, because you're real mad at God. And that's okay. You get to be real mad at God, and he can handle it. He's like, God's big, right? God can handle that. So you can be real mad, and you can just say, I just need God to be near. Or if you're so pissed you can't say God, then you can say, I just need like the source of life to be near and with me and heal me. And being out in creation, I think, is a great way to connect to the source of life, right? I love that. Those are really good suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. So you are still walking it out, right? Like we all are always still walking it out. We're always still trying to figure out like the new way we are, because the grief, we don't ever get over it. It's changed us forever, who we are. What is like something that you would recommend to somebody else who's on here who's struggling with a loss?
I think honoring that loss is really important, whether it's a person or something you were hoping for that didn't come to fruition, or a loss of, there's so many different losses we can experience in life and we will experience. So honoring that, whatever that might look like.
Yeah.
For me, I have like things of my mom's around my house that remind me of her, and I have this letter that she wrote me on my desk that I read a lot, and just to remind me of her love for me and my love for her. And so honoring that relationship, even though it feels like it's gone, it's not gone, it's just changed. And that's hard because we're tactile, we like to see people, and feel them, but the relationship is it's not gone, it's just different. And so trying to figure out what that new relationship looks like. And I think just giving yourself the space and the grace, to say like there isn't a time frame, but giving yourself the love that you'd give someone else if they were hurting, if they were frustrating, if they were grieving. If they were frustrated, grieving.
Yes.
Yeah. Give yourself that same love. Yeah.
I love that so much. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
And ask for help too.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Like everybody will need help at some time in their life, and everyone will go through something that's heartbreaking. And so we want to be there for those who are going through that, and others want to be there for you too. And so don't feel like a burden. Don't let the enemy tell you that you're not a burden, and your grief isn't a burden. Find the safe people that can handle it, and to sit with you in it and be with you and be supportive of you.
Yes. Oh, I love all of that. Thank you so much, Abby, for sharing your heart with us.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I so appreciate you. And then, so before we leave, there is a free grief guide that I will post in my Instagram profile with just some tips and tricks, like some that Abby and I mentioned, but some that we didn't, for taking care of yourself when you're walking through grief. If anybody wants to download that, you can. Abby is at Flourish Body and Soul. She and I are both holy yoga therapists. So anytime you need, if you need to talk to any of us, if you feel triggered, if you feel like you want to DM either of us, we are both open to that. And then if you want to join Abby and I in Colorado for our yoga retreat, we would love that too, because it's going to be a lot of being in nature. I feel like last time we literally were outside for 4 whole days.
We were. It was amazing.
It was amazing. So it's a lot of nature. It's a lot of breath. It's a lot of connecting deep inside of you. So if you want to join us for that, we would love for that to happen too. I will post this recording of this.
You're welcome, Rose.
If anybody has any questions, you guys can post some questions real fast before we hop off. And then I will post this video too to the YouTube channel. It's in the link in my profile under Tales of the Warrior, and I'll try and get it up tonight for people who want the replay of it. But Abby,
thanks for doing this.
You're a gift to the universe. Thank you so much for being here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love you, and I think
I
this
love
is
you.
amazing. Any
Take
questions,
care,
anybody?
everybody.
Feel free to DM us again if you have any
Yeah.
questions. All right. Have a
Yeah.
good day.
Bye,
Love you
guys.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.